If you're the partner of an ADHDer, do you find yourself constantly reminding your partner about tasks and responsibilities over and over like a broken record? And do you feel guilty and frustrated afterwards? Well, you are not alone. Nagging an ADHD partner is a common issue that a lot of couples face. Chronic nagging can seriously harm your relationship. It chips away at both your partner's self-esteem and it creates a toxic dynamic that leaves everyone feeling unhappy and disconnected. But don't worry, I've got a practical plan to help you stop nagging and improve your relationship. Because the thing is, nagging often isn't just about irritation. It usually stems from deeper fears and unmet needs. So understanding this is key to breaking the cycle. So in this video, we're going to explore why you can't stop nagging your ADHD partner, and more importantly, how to address the root cause. So once we've identified this nagging trap, let's dig into the root of where a lot of these problems come from. The ADHD impact on relationships. You know, a lot of people don't really understand how much ADHD can affect a partnership. It's not just about forgetting to take out the trash or being late for dinner. Not acknowledging ADHD can really impair a relationship and the dynamics that happen around it. And if you think about it as the partner of an ADHD, how many times have you reminded your partner about something important only to find that they've, forgotten it again? It's really frustrating, right? Because you think to yourself, if I don't nag, then things won't get done. But what happens is that this develops this negative feedback loop. And this anxiety can drive this sort of nagging behavior. So you might feel like if you don't constantly remind your partner, then all of these important tasks are going to fall through the cracks. But here's what's going on. Like, ADHD isn't just about being forgetful or easily distracted. It is a complex neurological condition that affects executive functioning. And these executive function skills are skills that we use to manage time, pay attention, plan, and organize. So for those of you who aren't aware, ADHD can lead to, a lot of distraction. ADHDers struggle to focus on tasks, especially if they're not immediately engaging. ADHDers can struggle with memory. We can forget important dates, appointments, or even promises. We can struggle with engaging or disengaging from tasks. So this can lead us to procrastinate or hyper-focus on less important activities. We can struggle to be organized. We can struggle keeping track of schedules, belongings, or responsibilities. Or we can struggle with time blindness, which means that we can end up being late for things or super early on things. And all of these symptoms can create a perfect storm for relationship conflict. So you might find your partner forgetting a really important appointment multiple times despite being reminded over and over again. And it can feel like they don't really care about the appointment, right? So that may sound familiar to you. But the crucial point is that this behavior isn't about a lack of love, care, respect, or even willpower, despite how it may feel. So it's not that your partner doesn't care or isn't trying hard enough. ADHD is a neurological difference. Our brains are wired differently. So it's important to understand this in how you perceive and respond to these challenges. Because at the end of the day, it can feel in moments like someone with ADHD doesn't care about you. But the fact is that their struggle to finish tasks or to get their calendar in order, things like that, they're not a reflection on their care of you or the relationship. And it's really important to disconnect those two. So you can acknowledge that you feel that way, but you also need to acknowledge that that is not necessarily the reality. It doesn't mean that your partner doesn't care, despite how it may feel. The emotions and the logic in this moment can be quite hard to juggle, because if you feel uncared about and logically understand that it's not that they don't care, you can feel this cognitive dissonance in your mind of these two separate feelings, right? But because it feels like your partner doesn't care, this can lead to a lot of strengthened emotions, and it can lead to a breakdown in communication. And this is often what leads to this nagging that partners of ADHDers can turn to. One of my most recent members actually came to me because she was struggling with dealing with her ADHD partner's behavior, and she had turned into a nag. And she had realized this within herself. She had gotten into a habit of taking her partner's ADHD as self-centeredness, essentially. And this can highlight one half of the struggle of dealing with ADHD in a relationship. Our emotions can take over and push out the logical side of things. So it can be really easy in the moment to misinterpret ADHD symptoms as a character flaw or a lack of care. But it's important to take the time to understand how ADHD works so that you don't take it personally. The reason why you're taking it personally is because you don't truly understand how ADHD works. You understand it conceptually, you understand the idea of it, but you don't understand it experientially. You don't understand what it's like living with it day to day. And this is the difference between taking things personally and actually understanding. So let's say, for example, you're late for work, and as you get to your office door, there is someone in a wheelchair who has broken their leg, and they're struggling to kind of get through this rotating door, and you can't get past them. They're struggling in the way. In that moment, you can conceptually understand that they have an injury and that they cannot get through the door without some sort of help. You can conceptually understand that. But because you are you and you're not putting yourself in their shoes in that moment, You're sat there observing them, conceptually understanding that they are in a wheelchair and that they're struggling to get through, but you feel angry because you're late for work and you're trying to get past them. And this is what we call the actor-observer bias. So yes, you can conceptually understand, but your brain will come up with reasons why they should be doing something different. Your brain will come up with thoughts of, why don't they just use crutches? Why don't they use a different door? Why don't they go around the back? Why don't they call someone to come down and help them? So you're too busy sat there observing and not putting yourself in their shoes. And that's why you're having the thoughts as the observer. However, when you put yourself into the shoes of the actor, the person who's actually in the situation, and truly get into their mind, as actors do, then you can start to understand why they may be doing what they're doing, why they may have the experience, why they may be struggling with it. And this is the difference. This is where we spend all of our time in the observer state rather than putting ourselves in the actor state. So the more that you can put yourself into the actor state and take the understanding of your ADHD partner, the more you can start to develop an empathy and understanding of how their brain works and be able to come up with much more efficient solutions. A lot of people come to me saying, well, I understand what ADHD is. I'm just trying to get my ADHD partner to do things differently. But the fact is, it's only once we start to overcome that actor-observer bias that we can actually start to come up with real solutions that help. So the first hurdle is getting over this actor-observer bias and being able to look past it in order to be able to put ourselves into our partner's shoes, understanding experientially what they go through in order to be able to get to a solution that actually works. So now that we understand how ADHD impacts relationships, let's talk about breaking this nagging cycle. And just before I move forward, if you do want more videos like this, then feel free to subscribe to my channel for new videos every single week. So the first step is recognizing that nagging isn't effective and take responsibility for your part in this dynamic. It's not about blame, but it's about empowerment. You have the power to change this pattern. And this starts with a bit of self-reflection. So here's a little challenge for you. For the next 2 weeks, keep a journal about your nagging behaviors. Note when you nag, what triggers it, how you feel before, during, and after. This may seem a little bit simple, but it's actually quite a powerful tool for identifying your own patterns and seeing the impact they have on the relationship. So for example, you might notice that you tend to nag more when you're stressed about work or when your partner forgets something specific. These insights can help you address these underlying issues rather than just reacting in the moment. And once you start to gather this information, it's time to open the communication with your partner. And again, this isn't about pointing fingers or making accusations. It's just about sharing your observations and your feelings and working together to find solutions. So you could start this conversation with, I've noticed that I've been nagging you a lot lately, especially about household chores. And I realize that this isn't helpful for either of us, and I want to work on changing this pattern. So can we talk about how we can approach this differently? Now, notice how this statement takes responsibility for your part, and it shows a desire for change, and it invites your partner to be part of this solution. This means that you're working together rather than sitting there on the sidelines telling someone what they should do. It's not accusatory or defensive. This can help your partner be a lot more receptive. It may not take one conversation, but over time, the more that you speak to your partner like this, the more receptive they're going to be to what you're saying. After all, what we're looking for is an emotional agreement rather than a logical one. So let's just break down the difference here. When you're nagging, your partner may agree logically with what you're saying. They may say, yes, I will do this. Yes, I should do this. They may agree with it a lot of times, but emotionally, they're not agreeing to it. Emotionally, inside, they may become resentful about it. They may be hurt. They may feel belittled by you, but they logically agree. However, what you're looking for is to build an emotional agreement. And emotional agreements are much more important than logical ones. So when you put yourself in their shoes, you talk about how they're feeling, you get them involved in what is being said, what is being planned, then they're more emotionally invested in the solution. Focusing on emotional agreements and making sure that your partner feels heard, feels safe, and feels involved in this, it means that they're more likely to succeed at the solution. And this means that you won't feel the need to nag as much. So when you're having this conversation, it's crucial to approach it from an emotional standpoint rather than a logical one. Remember that your partner isn't trying to frustrate you on purpose. They're dealing with challenges. So you may start with something like, I know it's not easy for you to remember every task. I understand that that's part of your ADHD. I want to find a way to support you without resorting to nagging. So what do you think might help? So this approach acknowledges your partner's struggles whilst also expressing your desire for help. It invites them to be part of the solution. And this is empowering for both of you. And during these conversations, be prepared to listen more than you talk. So it's crucial to remember that if you don't have ADHD, your ADHD partner will have a lot more insights about ADHD than you do, no matter how much you conceptually understand it. So they're going to have a clearer insight into their struggles with forgetfulness, their struggles with remembering, time management, etc. And it's important to understand that they may have feelings about being nagged that they haven't expressed before. So be prepared to listen to all of them as well, because ultimately, again, it's about emotional agreement rather than logical one. So remember, the goal isn't to eliminate all reminders or to expect your partner to suddenly remember everything. It's about finding a balance that works for both of you. And there are plenty of examples that could be used for this. Shared calendars, setting up reminder systems, finding a way to divide tasks that play to your strengths. But remember, none of these are a perfect solution, and none of these are going to work without the emotional agreement. So as you work on this, it's important to be patient with yourself and your partner. And remember that change doesn't happen overnight. So there's going to be setbacks. The most important thing is to keep communicating and keep adjusting your approach as needed. And working on developing these emotional agreements are skills that I work on with all of my successful Ultra Normal members. So if you do want to join us, then sign up for the free relationship bootcamp, where you'll learn the same steps to start turning your relationship around today. Yes, including ADHD relationships. Click on the link in the description to grab your spot. One step to take is that as you feel the urge to nag, take a piece of paper and write down the urge that you're having, the thing that you want to express. Write it all down, externalize it. And then once you've written out all of your feelings, all of the frustration, go back and read it and try to find the one key emotion that you're feeling from it. And be honest with yourself and write that down. You know, with ADHD is about a struggle with impulsivity. But you've got to also understand that nagging is also an impulse that can be stopped. And this is something that is important to understand that you are in control of. You know, nagging is an impulse, and it's an impulse that can be controlled and overcome. And if you're trying to help an ADHD partner with their impulses, then it's not a very strong position to be in if you're unable to control your impulses. So this is why it's crucial to make sure that you are stepping in and leading by example. And by leading by example, it's a lot easier to get to an emotional agreement. So if you do want a deeper dive on that, then I'll leave you with this video right here. I'll see you over there.